Welcome to Rethinking Humanity Interviews. I'm Lacey Delane.
Hi, I'm Sonya Larrea.
And we are so excited. It is our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. We have Sherry Turkle with us.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think we can get any bigger than this.
It's awesome. I'm super excited, Lacey.
Woo! I'm so excited. Yay! And Victor giving us some fun images there. Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow. I love it.
We couldn't get any more fun than that. That's what we want to do today. We want to have fun.
Yeah.
We said, hey, this is a big deal. We had reached out to Sherry Turkle several months ago and said, we'd love to have you on. And she said, I'm writing a book. I can't talk until after it, comes out. And so we said, hey, come for our 1-year anniversary. And here we are today.
Oh,
so pretty cool,
we are
right?
so fortunate. We're thrilled. We're delighted. We're excited. It's awesome.
Hi, Tal. Want to say hey to everybody watching on YouTube. Thanks for being here with us. Really means a lot. Before we bring Sherry in, which we're going to do very quickly, I really wanted to take a moment and just show gratitude. Because when we started this podcast a year ago today, I don't know that we thought we would be doing this for a year. Sonya, did you think we would be doing this for a year?
I don't know, because it was right in the middle of COVID, right? I was just taking it day by day, but it's amazing that we've done a year. It's been phenomenal, Lacey. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been so much fun, and I'm thankful. It's a lot of thanks go to Victor Ho. Victor, we would not be doing this, as you know, and many of you may know, we would not be doing this podcast without him. If you want to hear the story of how he tricked me and us into doing this podcast, we did a bonus episode on it, so take a listen. But thank you so much, Victor, for who you are and everything that you've done. Sonya, to you, this has just been so much fun. There's nobody else I'd rather do this with. I think we work so well together, and I really appreciate everything you've done, being so committed, to what we're doing.
Well, Lacey, back at you, because we couldn't do this without all your hard work, and obviously Victor behind the scenes. It's been an incredible experience.
Yeah, and then the last couple of people I want to shout out to, Andrew and Evelyn Yang. If it wasn't for my journey with them, I definitely wouldn't have started this podcast. Zach Grauman and Carly Riley are part of that too. And then, of course, our mutual friend, Sonya, Richard Berry. He is why we met, and we wouldn't be here today. So thank you, Richard. And then a personal friend and someone that I worked with who I lost in December, Pat Wells. I definitely would not be doing this without her. So lots of appreciation for where we are today and who's been a part of the process.
Yeah, I want to say I'm grateful for all of our listeners. Specifically, we're going to do a shout out to Cheryl and Steve, because they're faithful listeners. And hello, Anthony. I just saw him on the screen.
Cool. So thanks for everybody who's been listening. We really appreciate it. We do want to say we have a big announcement that we're going to make at the end of this interview. We're super excited about it. So stay tuned for that. With that being said, I think we're ready to bring in Sherry.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Sherry. I want to introduce you for the audience. Sherry Turkle is the Abby Rockefeller Moss Professor of Social Studies of Science and Technology in the program in Science, Technology, and Society at MIT. She is the founding director of the Initiative on Technology and Self, a center of research and reflection on the evolving connections between people and artifacts. A licensed clinical psychologist, she is the author of 6 books, including Alone Together, and the New York Times bestselling Reclaiming Conversation.
A great one.
As well as the editor of 3 collections, a Ms. Magazine Woman of the Year, a TED speaker, and featured media commentator. She is a recipient of Guggenheim and Rockefeller Humanities Fellowships and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Science. In her latest book, of course, which I have, The Empathy Diaries, this vivid and poignant memoir, Turkle ties together her coming of age and her path-breaking research on technology, empathy, and ethics. Thank you.
So lovely to be here. Thanks for being with us. And we are, again, we've said it like 8 times, so sorry about that, but we're so glad to have you. Thank you again for being here. How are you? Sorry. How are you doing today, and where are you joining us from? It looks like a beautiful sunny day there.
Yes, I'm at my, I spent most of the quarantine time at in my writing retreat at the beach, which is where I am now in Provincetown, Massachusetts. I just jumped out of the water, so I'm kind of all sort of sparkling and happy and relaxed. I'm here with my daughter and my son-in-law, where I haven't seen for just the longest time. I'm just vaccinated, so I feel comfortable seeing them. So I'm really so grateful and so happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's several of us that would love to be at the beach. That's amazing.
Yes. It's really been a blessing to be able to be with them after not seeing them for so long. So I'm very, very grateful. Very grateful.
I'm sure they're super excited as well.
Yes, we're all excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we want to start with the empathy diaries, but I think a lot of what you write about really overlaps our podcast so well, which is obviously one of the big reasons we wanted to have you on. But would love for you to just start with telling us about the empathy diaries.
Yes. Well, I wrote the empathy diaries because I wanted to tie together my personal story with my work. All my life, I've realized that my work and my life really were of a piece. And I know that that's true for many people, but it takes a certain bravery to explain why. And I came to a point in my life where I was ready to, tell that story. And so about 10 years ago, I really started to pull together what there was about my upbringing that made empathy and the way in which technology, in my view, is in many ways attacking empathy. Why? For me, that's just not, a day at the work. For me, that's not kind of like a day at business. That's really a passionate, I'm lit, when I go to work. And I realized that it was because my life was filled with secrets growing up. My mother had been married. She didn't want anyone to be before, to my father, but when she remarried, she didn't want anyone to know about this marriage. So she had me lie about this first father. She had me lie about my name. She had me use my stepfather's, her new husband's name, even though it wasn't my name. So I had a secret name. I had a secret life. I mean, my life was filled with lies and secrets. And in order to, I didn't even know my father's name. And in order to sort of not go crazy, I had to develop some kind of model of why all of these loving adults in my life were behaving in such an odd way to make me tell these secrets, to make me share these secrets, keep these secrets. And so the way I put it in the book, that getting into their heads and trying to figure out what they could possibly be about, that empathy with them, before it was a sort of psychological virtue, was a survival mechanism.
Wow.
So that I didn't develop empathy, really in the first instance as a kind of loving, in kind of a context of sort of loving relationships, but really as a kind of baby Nancy Drew, to figure out what are these people trying to get me to accomplish and how can I not go crazy in this environment. And so I tell that story because I think a lot of people try to not go crazy in households of secrets.
Yes.
And I gradually pieced together what they were trying to accomplish, and how I sort of took this environment and made the most of it, and how it turned me into who I am.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who have struggled with that. I myself can relate to that.
Yeah.
The empathy as a survival tactic.
Yes.
Really having to try to figure out, what are you thinking right now? What do I need
Right.
to do to keep me safe right now
Yes.
and get through this situation? And as you mentioned, it is so courageous of you and of all of us when we share our stories, as you did. I was struck, Sherry, by how clear your memories were of
Yes.
childhood. And I was thinking, man, I mean, it helped me remember some of my childhood, but I was thinking,
Yes.
I don't remember a lot of my childhood, it seems, as clearly as you did.
Well, first of all, let me say I had a lot of professional help. In other words, I've been psychoanalyzed. I'm a psychoanalyst. I didn't just kind of like come to it like, oh, and I've been working on this book for many, many years. The origin of the book, funnily enough, was the first time I wrote a book that kind of got a lot of public attention. It was in 1984, 94, 85, and I was one of Esquire magazine's 40 young people who were 40 people under 40 who were changing the nation. And they sent a lovely writer, a young psychiatrist, to interview me. And this man came to my office and he said, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your mom, you mentioned in the acknowledgments, but you don't mention anything about your father. And of course, my father's identity had been kept from my half-sister and brother because they had been told that I was Sherry Turkle. That we all had the same father, which was a lie. And I had kept my mother's secret, even though she was now dead. And I couldn't even answer his question that I had another father. I said, well, I can't possibly answer that question. I'm only here to answer questions about my professional work. In other words, I act like an absolute lunatic. And I realized in the Esquire profile, he said, well, the brand of Sherry Turkle is that thought and feeling are one. But when you ask the real Sherry Turkle a question about thought and feeling, she behaves like you're attacking her. So, whoa, what's with this woman? And I realized that was the end to it. That's really where the book begins, that I had to come to terms with my history. That my work and my way of being had to be one. And I called up my half-sister and brother and I said, look, I do have a different father. The secret has to end now. And I am going to start to write my truth. And that was really the beginning of this very healing process. And little by little, I found my biological father. And I told my stepsister and brother about him. And I discovered why my mother had been keeping him from me. She had her reasons. And I don't know if I would love people to read the book because it's a mystery story, but she had her reasons. And really writing the book has been my reconciliation with my mother, because all my life I had been angry at her for keeping my father from me. And in the end, she had her reasons. And through the process of finding my father, I was able to reconcile with her and realize that she had been trying to save me. She did save me by keeping him from me. And so it's really a story of finding a father, but a deeper reconciliation with my mother, and also finding out a deep motivation for my professional life. So it's been a journey. It's really been an exciting journey that's pulled together my life and my work. I'm very excited about the book and about its reception and how much other people have found of themselves in it.
Yeah, I was going to say I love the book, and I encourage everyone to read it. Like you said, it is like a story, detective story, as you're going through it. I related to it because I think a lot of families have secrets. So I think that's a common theme. Also, the empathy part of the book really struck me with your story. Specifically, one that I'm remembering is when you were in college and you were confronted, or I believe there was some things that were disappearing, and they
Yes,
assumed
yes.
that you were the one taking it. What was so striking about that story is how this young woman spoke to you and how you received it. And
Oh, no. I think we lost her. She sometimes freezes
Unique
while we're
story.
recording.
Sonya, but I
Sorry.
know the question, so I can
Okay.
answer. I can answer. This is actually this is a story of how you have to be ready. I was very isolated in college. I came from a very a lower class family. I'd never, I really didn't know how to use all the forks, in the dining hall. I was really, and I stood out. I didn't have the right clothes. I wasn't ready for Harvard, that's for sure. Harvard might have been ready for me, but I wasn't ready for Harvard. And I felt, academically, I could sort of find my way, but I didn't know what to talk to the other girls about. They rode horses, they had debutante parties. I was from Brooklyn, from a working class family in Brooklyn. So I was very, very shy. And it was true that in our dorm, there was a thief, and we were told that there was a thief, and that the thief should turn herself in, that the thief needed help, and that the thief wouldn't be punished, but would get counseling. And I didn't think anything of it until one day at lunch, I realized that people suspected me. And I turned to a woman who I trusted, and I asked her if she would speak with me. And I said, why do people, I understand that some people think I'm the thief. You need to talk to me about why this is. I'm not, but you need to tell me why this is. And she changed my life because she didn't flinch. She didn't say, no, you must be hearing wrong. She said, yes, and here's why. You're so shy that you come to the other girls' rooms to ask for change for the Coke machine, that you're the person most likely to come and ask for change for the Coke machine. And people think that if you're so isolated, that that's the only way you can connect, that maybe you would connect by taking our stuff too. And I heard her. In other words, I was ready to hear her and to have a moment when I could imagine how it must have felt like to be in the middle of a conversation and have me appear and ask for change out of nowhere. And I realized how brave she was, and I told her so. And then she showed me what true empathy was, because she said to me, I think I understand how lonely you are. Let's talk about what it would be like for you to just come in and say, hi, what's going on? And I explained to her why I couldn't, that I felt that everybody else had a famous father or a famous mother. And she said, I don't care about my famous father. You seem like I'd love to talk to you. And she showed me that empathy is not just putting yourself in the place of somebody else. It's putting yourself in their problem and making a commitment to them, to stick it out with them and be there for them when they need you. Because after this conversation, we went to lunch together and sat together, and all of a sudden I had a friend. And it has stayed with me, even telling the story now. It stays with me in a way, how much it takes and how little it takes to be empathic. But to be empathic, you can't just kind of like listen a little bit and say, oh yeah, sure. You need that commitment to another person. And of course, I think that in our country now, we need this more than ever. We need this active empathy where we really commit to listening to each other's stories. So I love this part of the book where you feel my isolation and you feel that somebody can take action and bring me into a new life. And it changed my life, that woman. She changed the course of my life.
It's amazing. And I mean, I think it speaks also to what happens when we're honest and we aren't ashamed of being honest.
Right.
You were like, can you just tell me? And she was like, sure, I'll just tell you.
Exactly.
There was no shame there, which I think we really have a hard time. A lot of us have a hard time doing that.
Right. You know, and even when I was writing the book, some people who read the book, friends of mine, said, are you sure you want to include that story? And I said, well, why do you ask? And they said, well, it really, that you were thought that you might have been a thief. It sort of shows how isolated you were in such a raw way. People don't see you like that now. They see you as like some fancy lady, Really, are you sure you want to show? And I said, yes, I absolutely want to show myself that way. Because there are plenty of women out there, plenty of men out there who people would think of as the Holmes Hall thief. And they're exactly who I want to reach. And I was no more fancy than they are. I just was that isolated. I wasn't a thief. I was just somebody who was so out of the game that the only reason I could think of to come into somebody's room was to ask for change for the Coke machine. Sure. Everybody has to know that I was once somebody who had no reason to go into somebody's room except to ask for change for the Coke machine. And that is something that admitting to that is like, it's not only okay, it's important that we were all somebody once who had no other reason to go into anybody's room except to ask for change for the Coke machine. I mean, I'm tearing up just thinking about the story because and that people were afraid for me to include that in my memoir. I mean, this memoir, I talk about my husband's infidelity. I'm talking about, the number of things in this memoir that should be embarrassed about, but this is the one that's raw. This is the one that people were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because this is the one.
Do you think that that's because people also can relate? That rawness comes out in empathy.
Well, we've lost Sonya, but she's asking.
Your experience with your grandparents, your mother.
People are protective of me. When people say leave it out, it was because it was out of love for me. It was out of love for me that they wanted to leave it out. It was out of caring for me that they wanted to leave it out. It was out of caring for me that they thought it showed me as too needy. But I was alone there at school. I had no friends. I didn't think of myself as good enough to make a friend. I didn't know if I was good enough to make. I tried. I tried out for a play. I thought, I would try out for a play. But the other people who were trying out for plays were like John Lithgow. Lithgow was my classmate. Tommy Lee Jones was a classmate. These people were like, these were people that studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts before they got to Harvard. I just sort of said, I want to be in a play. It was sort of like. So the thing about Harvard is that everything was being done at such a professional level. I went to try out. I wanted to be in a freshman seminar, and the man who ran the seminar said, "Well, what quarterlies do you read?" and I didn't know what a quarterly was. So I was, but that's what keeps people, that's what keeps people out of places of power, because they don't know what a quarterly is. They don't know what to talk about. And they're accused of being the Holmes Hall thief. So, I mean, what I had was, I had tenacity, and I had a lot of tears in my pillow. So it's a story of, I think, this is not I don't want to say it's a sad story, but it's a story of a woman who, didn't give up. I didn't give up. I had a lot of tenacity.
Yeah, and I would even venture to say that that's probably a very human experience, what you experience, like not feeling sure that you're accepted, especially it's a new environment, you're in college,
right?
Your family wasn't, some well-to-do, famous family. So to me, it sounds like something that, many people can relate to, and that's the power of sharing it too.
Yes.
Because we don't have to be ashamed of who we are and our whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't choose it, first of all, but second of all, we're all human. And to that extent, we all have the same experiences.
Yeah.
And so I think that could have been part of the pushback too, to have.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then also I had experiences, the parts of the empathy diaries that I think I'm proudest of and that were hardest to write about, but I think have the most universality in terms of empathy, because I really feel that this empathy thing is what, coming out of the pandemic and in terms of healing our country and talking to each other. I worked as a cleaner. I had to drop out of college when my mom died, because I just was like, my stepfather was like, he wanted me to take care of my younger sister and brother. And I really knew that if I did that, I would not go to college. And I really knew that that wasn't what my mother wanted me to do. And so my grandfather gave me enough money to take an Icelandic airplane to Europe, and it was like unclear how I would support myself once I got there. But I worked as a cleaning lady in Paris. And when I was a cleaning lady, the people I was working for called me their Portuguese. They called me their Portuguese, because all the other cleaning people were Portuguese. So even though I was a Jewish girl from Brooklyn, as far as they were concerned, I was their Portuguese, because it was like a generic for cleaning person. And that experience was very important to me. I think it was very important to have an experience where I was treated as a generic cleaning person. Portuguese. I mean, they weren't interested in whether I went to Radcliffe or whether I was Jewish or whether I was from Brooklyn or whether I was white or my color skin. I was a cleaning lady. I was a Portuguese. In other words, it was a way of diminishing me by calling me a Portuguese. And I think that having that experience and talking about it in the book really helps people identify with, what that can mean, and how we all need to identify and think of what that feels like. Particularly now, when people are losing their jobs, who are treated, oh, you're an essential worker, we're just going to get rid of you, and that means you can lose your job. You're one of these essential workers. That means we can just get rid of you whenever we want. Essential workers means we can just get rid of you. You're like a Portuguese. To me, that experience, and also that in that time of living, kind of, I didn't earn a salary. I just was given a room in exchange for being a cleaning lady. And if I lost that job, I lost a place to live. And I think that having that experience also taught me something important about empathy with people who are one job away from not having a place to live.
Wow.
And I don't think you have to have these experiences necessarily to empathize, but it's not bad to read about them and stop and think about them and read about them from the pen of somebody you identify with, like me. I'm a college professor. People have read my other writings. They trust me. They know that I'm an honest ethnographer. They know who I am. They've taken my course. They've read other books by me. They can identify. They've seen me. They've seen my TED talk. And they say, "Hey, she was like one job away from not having a place to live. I can get that. I can get that. I can see that. I want to think about that. It's not just people I've never met who've had that situation. Sherry Turkle was in that. A lot of people are in that situation.
That's powerful.
I think that's helpful because I think we put people into categories like, oh, I'm like, I'm a professor. I'm like, okay, this one is somebody who's like more like not a professor. They're like, I don't know, that kind of person who might be losing a job. I think it's very helpful when we really read the true life stories of people we identify and emulate and want our children to emulate, and who are children's professors and teachers, and realize what their life was like and how they got to be who they are. So I thought it was very important to tell this story. And also, what it taught me is that I know that since I had a secret story, when I go into any situation and I see the story that I'm being told, I know there's another story because I used to be the secret story. So when I'm being sold a bill of goods, when I'm shown any situation, I used to be the person with the secret identity who was hiding the family secret, who had the secret name, who had the secret identity. And I think it's very helpful to know that when you go into a situation, don't just believe the first story you're told. There's probably a backstory. And that's another message of the book, is to look for the story behind the story. Things are not as simple as they seem.
I like the fact you bring up this, that we're in this liminal moment. Maybe you can define that for us, because that's super powerful.
Yes. Well, some people are very depressed right now. They really, there's so much, this year has been so difficult, and we're, politically, and, but I don't even know where to begin, but, I studied with a great anthropologist named Victor Turner, and he talked about moments in history that are called liminal, betwixt and between, where you're between times that are structured and where people know the rules. And I feel that our country, we sort of knew the rules. We had a kind of political structure. We had a sense of what was possible and what was not. And then COVID and the quarantine and isolation. And now we're coming out, and a lot of people are not playing by the rules. I mean, this voter suppression stuff is going back to Jim Crow. And sometimes I look at these rules, no water, sort of no water when you're voting,
In our state. That's
exactly. Just like, you really have to want to wear one of these hoop skirts, to feel like this is like like, when was the last time we really, things that you kind of can't believe. And people are looking at this and they're saying, well, okay, we are not, a lot of people are not playing by the rules, but are pretending that these are rules. We are not we don't know what the new rules are. The new rules are up for grabs. And those moments, because if they're not playing by the rules, we're going to do, and excuse me, I'm going to show you what my idea of some new rules are too. Mm. And I feel that so a liminal moment is a time when people don't know what these new rules are going to be. It's a time out of time, like our quarantine time has been. It's a time when a lot is possible. A lot of change is possible, because people are saying, well, I'm not sure how we're going to run our educational system now. I'm not sure how we're going to run our political system now. I don't like this new voter suppression. I have some ideas here. I don't like how, I have some ideas about, race, and I have some ideas about women, and I have some ideas about income inequality, and I have some ideas about worker rights, and I have some ideas. I have some ideas that now I want to be heard. And I think that we're just at a moment of tremendous possibility and change. And the thing about these moments out of time, out of normal time, is you kind of don't know you're in them when you're in them. Mm. But they really are moments when new combinations are possible, of young people and old people, and people who've been through the 60s with people who've never had a political thought in their life, but really say, this is not the country I want to grow up in. So I feel that we're very much in that moment too. Plus, in the Empathy Diaries, in my own life personally, I talk a lot about an idea from the same anthropologist called dépaysement. Dépaysement is decountrifying. I was taken out of Brooklyn and brought to Harvard, and that was a kind of taking out of your country. And what anthropologists say is that when that happens, when you're taken out of your country, you can see your country better.
Yes.
Because you see it with fresh eyes. It's like you go to Paris and you come back to the United States and you say, why aren't we eating fresh meat? Why is everything processed food? That's like the classic reaction to going to Italy. It's like you come back and you say, why aren't we eating fresh fruit? What's with all this one kind of apple? Why aren't there 30 kinds of apples? The Italians have 15 different kinds of bread. Why do we have what's like Passover? Why does this not, why do we have just one kind of bread? I just went to Italy. There are 45 different kinds of apples. Why do we just have one apple? There are 45 different kinds of berries. Why do we just have one berry? You get that sense of infinite possibility and freshness, and why is over. I'm just saying that when you leave your country, you come back and you see your country. Yes. You go to Europe and you come back and you say, why don't we have a socialist party? Why don't we have a party that's more for worker rights? We have workers. Why don't they have more unions? So I'm saying that right now, by being at home and watching on television the attack on the Capitol, by watching on television the attempt to steal the election, by watching on television the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, watching all of this, you say, I'm not sure that this was the America that I knew. I'm stepping out of the 4th of July parade. I have stepped out of the 4th of July parade and I see America fresh.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have had that experience. And between the liminal moment where the rules are breaking and that experience of stepping out and seeing the country fresh, I think there's the chance for a lot of very exciting change.
Yes. We talked about that early on the podcast when we started, that we feel very hopeful that we are in a moment where we can see the realities of how we're living. Our whole thing on the podcast is how can we rethink the way we do life to accommodate our humanity, our human needs, our human nature.
Yes.
We're in too much of a hurry with production and consumption to even to stop and think about that.
Yes.
And so we're hoping and discussed early on that this is a window of opportunity for us to go there.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
So,
the first thing that people need is, and this is what was so interesting about some of the questions that you sent me, to be thinking about, is that about being alone and being together is that one of the things about loneliness is that authoritarian people is that if you're too isolated and don't have community, you are drawn to dictatorship because you cannot imagine that you could have enough connection with other people to actually be part of a political movement.
wow.
So Hannah Arendt is one of those people who wrote very movingly about that, and whose work is just being rediscovered. That she wrote so movingly that what authoritarian regimes rely on is that kind of total isolation of the individual into a hopeless individuality, where you can't even imagine being a citizen. I mean, just being in this interview, and I'm trying to look at the green light because I know that will make for a bitter interview, but I'm looking at your faces because that's the trouble with Zoom, is I know I should look at the green light, but I'm looking at your faces because I'm drawn to look at your faces. So apologies to all the viewers who I'm not giving as good an interview to because I'm looking at these women's faces instead of at the green light. I know I should look at the green light, but I'm sorry. Too much Zoom. But I'm drawn to look at their faces because I like these women, and I'm drawn to look at them because already I feel a sense of connection to you. So here I am. I'm so far away from you, and yet I feel a connection to you. So I am not so isolated that I couldn't make common cause with you and be a citizen with you for a variety of things that we have in common. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we are truly depressed and isolated, we can't do that anymore. So and looking down at our phones.
Right. There's something you quote also about this Loneliness in America by Reisman, I think. And I wanted you to speak to that inner directedness versus outer directedness. I thought that's just cool.
Right. Well, David Reisman, who was a student of Erich Fromm, he picked up something that Erich Fromm wrote about a shift from being inner directed, in other words, knowing who you are and having an inner sense of purpose, to being outer directed and just looking for clues in the environment for who you should be. And both Erikson and Fromm were like, this is not good for democracy. Everybody is like looking to the outside to figure out who they should be. That is not the ideal. And what I've studied in my work is, I call it other directedness to a higher power, when everybody's on the internet and they don't even feel as though they have a self unless they're being validated by the internet. And in my own writing, I say you go from, I have a feeling, I want to make a call, to, I want to have a feeling, I need to send a text.
Whoa.
And that's a bad jump. You don't even feel as though you are validated enough to have a feeling unless you're validated by the connection. You do not want to be in that place. You want people to, and this is where Fromm and where Reisman, who are my mentors. Fromm was dead, but Reisman passed on his ideas. They were such wonderful mentors because they believed, that it's in solitude that people develop the capacity for relationship, because it's only if you can tolerate solitude and know who you are in a certain kind of being by yourself, that then you can turn to another person and say, well, who are you? Who are you? And that was my big advantage when I entered Radcliffe and had that moment with that woman, Lynn, when she sat down with me and told me the scoop on Holmes' whole thief, is that I kind of knew who I was. I knew that I was a very smart, socially inept young woman from Brooklyn who loved reading and writing and loved literature and was very shy and insecure around all these debutante, rich people, horse rider people. But I knew who I was. I knew I was honest and clever and had a good heart and had a loving heart. So I wasn't asking her to tell me who I was. I just was asking, am I interesting enough for you to be my friend? And she said, yeah, you're pretty cool. You know all this stuff. You're very brilliant. I'd love to talk to you.
The ending of your book is titled "People Are Not Objects," which is very much, reminds me of Fromm. Man has made himself into a thing.
Yes.
His book "To Have or to Be" is what we've discussed this past year on the podcast, and that what you're speaking of really reminds me of the same thing. To have is looking outside of yourself for something to make you feel whole or make you feel who you are, having a self. And then to be is that place of experience, that place of being able to have solitude, being able to be with yourself, being able to know yourself and be self-aware. So to me, it's just amazing the overlay that there is there, but also just, really, really neat to be able to hear from you as someone who's been basically directly influenced by Fromm. How much would you say his work and his ideas really are a root or a foundation or a strong part of the foundation of your work?
Very much, because I was my I don't know what to say, closest teacher, my most important teacher, the teacher who gave me, I really believe in mentors, which is another reason. I was going to stick in one other idea about the pandemic. Parents, listen to this, that I was in the middle of a study when the quarantine started, about parents' attitudes towards technology. And it was at a point when if a tech company said, I have a great program for you, it's going to, look at what your child is doing and check all of their keystrokes and personalize an educational program for them and give them just what they need and make it super personal. Parents were like, oh, that's really interesting. If they came to a parent now and said, I have one of those things for you, that a parent now would say, give my child a person, please. Would you just send my child a person, like a mentor?
Right.
So, I think we've learned something about the limitations of what you can do on a screen. Parents now really want their children to have people because they see how much we crave the full embrace of the human. So I just want to say that that's one of the positive things coming out of the pandemic. We talked a lot about the liminality, is that we are ready for some people in our children's lives, and we're not going to be such pushovers for just give me just send me my program, my personalized educational program. But what I was saying is, for mentorship, for people mentorship, my book is filled with people who helped me, true mentors who said, you are not there yet, but come back again, which is, to me, the key mentorship words, come back again. And the main guy who did that for me was David Reisman, who was a student of Erich Fromm's, which is the Erich Fromm connection. And David Reisman, who was analyzed by Erich Fromm, was both a student and his I believe was his analytic patient. But they had a very close relationship as well as being his analytic patient. And he picked up Fromm's idea of inner and outer directedness. And you get it from letting the world tell you should be, or can you get it from some kind of internalization and having an inner life? And that fear that American life was robbing people of the capacity for an inner life and looking too much to an outer life made me so attentive to that. When I saw that in online life, it lit me up. And I went to him, and he was an old man at that time, but I went to him and I said, I see this danger. And I just was able in his later years to discuss that with him. And he could see, the direction that I was taking it. And that is my greatest concern about life on the screen, is that it like takes that danger and raises it to this higher power, that we're constantly looking to a life on the screen to validate us in a way that was not, previously possible, because the screen, is when I was just checking the Zoom number, I had my phone was here. Everything is always with us.
Can we go there? I know we don't have too much time left, but this is something that I'm so passionate about. Sonya and I both. This issue, of course, this is really the heart of your work, but there's a section of Reclaiming Conversation that really stands out to me, and it is the Families 2.0 section.
Yes.
And so I just want to read just one little piece here and tie it to empathy and kind of let you talk a little bit about technology and how it's affecting us now in the development of empathy. You say family conversation is where children first learn to see other people as different from themselves and worthy of understanding. It is where children learn to put themselves in someone else's shoes, often the shoes of a sibling. If your child is angry at a classmate, you can suggest that it might help to try to understand the other child's point of view. So family conversations are a training ground for empathy, and upset feelings don't have to be hidden or denied. What matters is what you do with them, and the fact that it's a place for kids to be able to go back to over and over, to be able to learn how to process their feelings. And then we have technology that comes in and interrupts that in such a huge way now.
Yeah, and that brings me back. That brings me back to what I had going for me. That I worry the children today don't.
Yes.
In other words, look at that. Look at how much when I entered Harvard, I was accused of being the thief. I was lonely. I was isolated. I didn't know what a polity was. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know anything. But I came from a family that had dinner every night.
Right.
That talked and talked and talked and talked. And I knew, and then I had this secret that caused me to constantly be putting myself in everybody's position, and what must she be thinking? What must she be thinking? And it was constant practice in putting myself in the place of the other. And that is the experience that you need to give your child, parents, if you are listening. It's not like a one-off thing that you do, like on, I just have had the most fascinating conversations about Tech Shabbat. Of course, Tech Shabbat is wonderful. Of course, do it once a week and give up of course, how can that be bad? But you do it, have dinner as many nights a week as you possibly can without phones. Make dinner time, make anything around food and food preparation, and any time in the car, time without phones. And because you need to have time when you literally are looking in each other's eyes and saying, how are you? What happened? How are you feeling? And nobody will tell you how they're feeling if they think they are competing with the whole wide world that's on your phone. Because the whole wide world is on your phone. And the whole wide world could be famous people. It could be your job. It could be your livelihood. It could be somebody who loves you more than they do, or somebody you love more than the person you're talking to. It could be somebody super famous. It could be somebody you rely on for your living. I I don't know who's on the phone. It could be, I don't know, could be somebody who you hate, where you really have to get it sorted through. It could be, the person who's going to clean your chimney. I mean, but the point is, it's the whole wide world. And it could be your vaccination appointment. It's the whole wide world. And you've got to put the whole wide world away when you're talking to people, if you're trying to develop empathy with them, and particularly with your children. You've got to give them that opportunity to feel they have your undivided attention. It's just not even a complicated to do. And I just make rules. People are constantly asking me for complicated rules about screen time and how many hours. And don't make it complicated. The car, food, just make it the car and make it food. Food preparation and food eating. If you just do nothing about, the car, when you're driving, your eyes are on the road, so you're not looking at your phone. So nobody else in the car should be on the phone either, because that's precious time. That's precious time for talking. I mean, your children say, no, this is peak time for me to, talk to my friends and catch up on my social media. You say to them, I'm the parent here. It's peak time for me to talk to you. And
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, it's not peak time for talking to you. And just, you behave like a parent. And dinner and food preparation is peak. Maybe it's their peak time for getting in their social media hours. You say, you don't understand it now. I'm not asking you to. It's not important. This is our time to talk. Put your phone away.
I love that. You know what also you talk about, Sherry, that is so interesting is the third places.
Yes.
I love that too. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Well, the reason that we're so lonely now is because we don't have all those places that we used to go where we were together alone. I wrote about alone together, but what about all those together alone places like the coffee shop or the supermarket? I had a little supermarket near where I live. I sort of knew everybody there. People know my name. They said, hi, Sherry. I said, hi, Josephine. Her name is Josephine. And I used to love her recipe for lemon poppy seed muffins. And she knew my daughter loved them. And I finally harassed her and promised I wouldn't, sell them. And she gave it to me. I mean, we had a whole thing. And I mean, these are the relationships. These are the texture of life that make us feel like people. And when you take those out of life, you're taking out a lot. The marketplace, and even a grocery store, the checkout line, the cafe, the little restaurant you go to, the museum where you kind of know people. I mean, all the things that give our lives texture. And that's why we're so lonely in the COVID, and during these COVID times, is because our life has become flattened to what we can do alone, and then even in our little families, and then what we can do in front of screens. That's not what we want to be. We want to get back to the full embrace of the human includes these other places of more casual connection that really, and we have to nurture them, because if we don't nurture them, we're living with very isolated communities, and we need to really build up our church communities, our local communities. We need to join things and make our communities richer. I think when America gets back to itself, it will have more garden clubs, it will have more clubs, it will have more, we'll begin to build that up again, because I think we've realized that we need it, and we've missed it, and we were not nurturing it. We were not taking care of those places.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think these spaces are super important, and spaces that foster community. That's what we need. We need more of that.
Yes. And so I think that, again, this time of isolation has given us time to think, what have I missed? And it's been more than just, well, I've missed my daughter. Now I have my daughter here for a week, and I'm like, I sort of I'm like treating her like she's 29, and I'm treating her as though I said, okay, I get to treat you like you're 10 years old and kiss you whenever I want to kiss you. I said, okay. I'm really treating her like an 8-year-old who I'm allowed to just be all, like over her like a wet blanket, because I missed her so much, So now we're all allowed to, be like that with each other, but we also need to nurture all these places that really make us human and make us capable of these communities. So I feel very strongly about that people are going to sense, if we give ourselves the flexibility, we are going to sense and have the good sense to recreate things that we were dropping out of. And now we're going to say, hold on a second. Not so fast, not so. Look at how many book clubs. So many book clubs. It's because it's not because I need to read a book. I need to be with people.
Yes. It's a human need.
It's a human need. It's a human need.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful.
I know. We
did you meet with me every week? I'm hoping. I mean, do we get together and just talk about stuff all the time, or is this like a one thing, or is it like a regular club, or what happens here? How does this work?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. We would be honored. Are you kidding me?
Like a book club, or how does this go?
Yeah. We were going to ask you what you recommend, what reading you recommend, what other authors.
Oh, I'm reading such a great book. I'm reading 2 books by. So my book launch for the Empathy Diaries was with a woman, a great poet named Honor Moore.
Okay.
And the book launch was kind of, she wrote a memoir called Our Revolution, which was about her mother and her, she wrote a book about her mother, and she had found, this was so wonderful, she had found her mother had given her, before she died, materials for memoir, and she turned her mother's materials into a memoir. But it had a lot of resonance with my book, because of course my book is about what should I do with my mother's life and my mother's secrets. So we had a lot to talk about. So I highly recommend this this book called Honor Moore, My Revolution. And it led me to another book by Honor Moore, which is called The Bishop's Daughter, which is her memoir about her father. So what's wonderful about these books is she's extremely psychologically minded, and she's a poet, so she's able to really craft. It's also about family secrets, and I highly recommend these. And I'm thinking a lot about how people's work and life is really so structured by these secrets, because I should say that, not to give away too much of the book, but it turns out that my father was part of a group of men who sort of thought they were scientists and treated their daughters in a very particular way. I've been getting letters since I wrote this book from women who share a certain kind of abusive secrets. And I've been thinking so much about, the secrets that women share and have never, and, not all the secrets are sexual abuse, where we're so focused on, sexual abuse secrets, but there are secrets in families that have to do with not being able to say your name. There are secrets in families that have to, there are some people were told not to say they were Jewish. Right. Secrets in families that were told not to say anybody was divorced. Right. Secrets in families. In my family, my father was odd, and part of this, just it's unclear what his diagnosis was, but he was odd. And part of my story is that my mother thought that I would be unmarriageable if it came out unmarriageable. If it came out that I had an odd father, that people would not want to marry me because it might be genetic that I was a little odd.
Wow.
warning to suitors. I mean, and so there are all these women out there whose mothers tried to hide that there was any, potential mental illness in their families for fear that their daughters would be tainted. So interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
the news I've been
fascinating.
getting about secrets, and it's just fantastically interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to thank all the people who have been writing me, and I mean, I just feel as though I have a wonderful community of readers. And please buy the book and write me. And I love reading. I just love reading the Empathy Diaries. I love writing back to you all. It's just so wonderful. It's, oh my God! Well, you guys can write me too, and I really do look forward to chatting again.
Oh yeah, this was incredible.
Yes, we would love to have you back. Thank you.
My pleasure. Really, my pleasure.
Thank
Great
you so much. Before you go, we have a big announcement we're going to make.
Okay.
And we're really excited. We're a year old, as I think you heard. And Sonya, we are about
I'm
to
going to plug my computer in.
Okay, cool. We're going to do something big. Sonya, what's happening?
We're rebranding.
We're rebranding. We have a new logo. Oh, there's a cat. He's surprised. What? So we have a new logo and artwork coming. It's in the works. So our art is...
What? It's not going to be called Rethinking Humanity?
Oh, no. It will be Rethinking Humanity.
Yes. We're still going to call it Rethinking Humanity. But it's the artwork, our logo, that's what's going to change.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yay. I mean, this is art, Sherry, I made in Anchor. I just made it. Just like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I'm delighted to be on any of your rebranding shows. This was truly a great pleasure.
Oh, we loved it.
What a great conversation. What a great conversation. Eric Fromm, David Reisman.
I know.
My people.
Love it.
You were my people.
We would love to have you anytime. Of course, we'll be in touch about that. But thank you so much. Enjoy your day. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We love your work, Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for being with us. We'll see you next time.